Hello, my name is Jamie and welcome to this week's tutorial. This week we're going to look at a bit of sculpting, show you a few techniques for sculpting some aspects of the human head. I'm not going to go in and do a fully realistic human head because that's a very long tutorial. It's a very big subject and requires a lot of in-depth thought about everything that's going on. So rather than going in and doing a several hour long tutorial on that, I'm just going to do a sort of a short introduction to the sculpting tools, I suppose. How to do some nice organic shapes, sort of a primer that you could then take and quite easily use the techniques that I show you to sculpt your own human head and get a sort of a fairly good result without having to worry too much about some of the specifics. So yeah, I suppose we'll get right into it. We'll start off with doing is just with the default cube. I'm going to add in a multi-resolution modifier and hit subdivide once just to give you an idea of what's going on. So what this does is subdivides, smooths out your object, adds in more polygons and stuff, and every time you hit subdivide it increases the amount, and if you do simple subdivision it's just going to add geometry without smoothing everything out. So catwalk arc is generally the way to go. And then in the sculpt mode you can start to sculpt out the form and give some shape to the head as it is. Generally you want to get the sort of shape down in the lower 2-3 sort of level, and then as you go up sort of start to define some shapes. So because I'm not going to bother with the actual forehead shape, I'm just going to sort of bring in a brow line just with the clay tool along here. And generally you want to sort of sculpt on the lower level and then subdivide higher, and then sculpt. You don't want to do is go down a level when you're sculpting, and then change something on a lower level and then go back up, because it's not going to work that way. It's gonna cause you some errors. Try it yourself if you want to see what happens, but it does cause some funky stuff. And sort of whilst you're on a simple shape it might only be one or two little errors, but if you've got this great big character model that's got all the sculpting done on it, and then you go down a layer or go down a level, sculpt a bit and then go back up, and you'll find that a lot of stuff is just gone out of whack. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Work your way up, don't work your way down. I'll just make that a bit bigger. This mean looking ball type thing. So the tool that I'm using is clay. You can access that with the C key, or you can click on this image here and just select it there. These are all the brushes you can use, so you can just choose one and then go ahead. The radius and the strength, you can change them here, or you can change the radius with F and then move your mouse in and out and then left click to decide, and you can change the strength with Shift F, and as you move the cursor in and make the circle smaller, the background bit gets a bit darker, so you can see what's going on there. So yeah, darker it is, stronger it is, lighter it is, the weaker it is. That's a good visual way of seeing what's going on. Let's just bring this out to see what's going on. Texture can be useful for adding in texture, skin pores, wrinkles, that sort of stuff. rather than having to sculpt in all those things individually. The curve can be quite useful. You can adjust that on the fly and get some neat looking effects. And I'll just turn on X mirror symmetry, and that'll just give me sort of something a bit more symmetrical, hopefully. As you're sculpting, it sort of keeps everything symmetrical. So yeah, that's about right now. And I'm going to subdivide that one more time, I think, and just happen to edit mode and go W shade smooth. So now that it looks nice and smooth, which is the way I like it, and I'm going to start off with the crease tool with Shift C, I think, and I'll just sort of sculpt in the mouth around about here, I think. So I'll make a fairly small brush. I want it to be quite small. You can see that's about how big it is down there. It doesn't show up very well on the model. And then about medium strength. So I'll just sort of draw in the line that I want the lips to take when they meet. And that's not exactly what I wanted, so let's do that again. A bit of a peak there. There we go. So now I've got that initial line in. I'm going to switch to the grab tool with G and make it bigger, and I bring these corners back and in a bit, and then start to bring all this out a bit. It should flesh it out a bit. I'll just smooth around there. What I'll do is go to crease again, and just along the top ridge of the lip, holding down Control, going to brush. That'll help give a bit of volume to each top and bottom lip. And I might just smooth that corner area. And as you can see, even at level 6 it still gets a bit chunky in spots. So I suppose if your computer can handle it, might jump up another one. And that's just sort of a basis for the lips. We can start to use, they like to use Inflate, which is Iron Keyboard. Excuse me. Make it a little bit big. And about 0.5 radius is nice. And just lots of sort of quick strokes should sort of help to give a bit more volume. Try to smooth when you get some artifacts like that. So that's looking quite pointy at the moment up there, so just using the grab tool, I'm just going to bring that down a bit, smooth that out there, and just for the sake of it, Shift F with the draw tool and Control, just bringing that area that between the lips generally goes in, and draw a bit extra there. Maybe use it to add a bit of volume. So got a general sort of lip shape going on. You can start to use pinch, which is P on your keyboard. and sort of pinch together just that area at the top of the lip. And my brush is probably a bit too big for that. You generally want it to be smoother down here, so I don't pinch it too much. But especially this main area in the center. Give yourself a solid line that the lips have. So that's alright in there. And then this area is looking a bit too raised. Just smooth that down a bit. And thicken out this bottom lip as well. Move that up a bit. Then with clay, just it's a bit too strong. Shift F, about 0.25. Just bring in a little bit of form around the corner there. So there's an actual sort of a muscle group that goes around. It's a bit wonky along here, so I could use the grab tool to really smooth that out, sort of by the individual. So that's a bit better than it was. I'm going to make a fairly big grab there, just bring that out a bit. So yeah, they're sort of starting to look like a pair of lips now. I suppose the more work you put into them, they're going to look a bit better. I'm working on a fairly small area on a pretty big thing, so it's not getting a lot of geometry in there. What I'll do now is sort of bring in a bit of an eye. What you might want to do, it sort of depends at which point in the process feels good to you. Bring in a couple of spheres just for eyeballs. I won't quite yet. I'll just get rid of that grid. That's annoying me. So, yeah. So just with crease again, fairly small brush, just under that brow ridge, just drawing the shape of the eyes, and that bottom one was a bit crap. So I'll do that again. So got this weird looking thing going on. And again, using control and sort of just finding that area there, you can begin to get a ridge. And I highly recommend you use a tablet for this. My one's being a bit stupid at the moment, so I'm having to use a mouse, which isn't totally ideal. Yeah, I've got a Wacom 4. It's quite cool. You can set the buttons, custom buttons and stuff to do whatever you want. So get the right shape in. So got these thick looking eyelids. I'll just grab that corner and bring it in. I'll just grab this corner, bring it out and back a little bit, and then from pretty much any view, I'm just going to grab as much of the eye as possible while just sort of leaving out the corners, and just sort of bring it out to give the lids some roundness. They are sticking out a bit, so bring them down, back in a bit. And bring them in towards the centre as well. So I've got a fairly weird looking guy going on without a nose. I'll probably bring in the C for clay. bring my brow back out. You might want to spend some time on these eyelids, sort of getting them the right shape. And I'll just smooth out that internal area. Maybe even just hit D for draw and control and just sort of bring that whole spot in a bit, just so that it just doesn't interfere too much when you've got a sphere in there. Looks like he's got weird eyes at the moment, but so if I go into object mode, I'll go cursor to center and shift A, bring in a UV sphere. I'll just leave it at the default, tab into edit mode and bring in a mirror modifier, rotate it around, scale it down. Now let's go back into where's my spheres? There's my spheres. So bring them out. Go to sculpt. There's no real easy way to do it in a separate object, so what I will do is in edit mode for the cube, I think. Oh, sorry. Too much screwing around. So we've got the eyes, eyelids. Smooth that out a bit in there. And again, do a bit of pinching. This one, again, P on your keyboard if you want to use that. Pinch the eyelids. Don't pinch them too much, because you can end up having this sort of, this pencil thin line, and that's not realistic at all. You actually find eyelids are quite thick. So just bear that in mind when you're doing everything. And I might sort of crease. Brush is a bit big. I'm going to crease in there just to help that, and just with control increase again, build up that into there. So yeah, sort of general the crease. Clay is good for building up form, so if I wanted to have a nose, I'd sort of start building up the form of that with clay. So we got that sort of coming in. Join it to the brow, so yeah, you can quickly build up the form. It's generally better to use clay rather than draw, because you get a bit more control with it, and it sort of adds clay onto the top of the surface better than draw does. Draw just sort of stretches everything and makes it a bit weird, but draw does also have its uses, so bear that in mind. Grab's good just for adjusting sort of small things. Try not to use too much grab, because you can end up having sort of, as you move here, so I need the eyelid to be down there, I'm going to get all this weird stuff here, so I'm going to have to adjust that, and then adjust that, and then adjust that. So grab can be useful. It's better sort of to affect a bigger area with grab, I find. But it can be, again, a useful tool just for getting the right sort of form. I suppose grab is more useful in the lower levels of sculpting. Pinch is good just for getting that extra little bit of detail in there. Increase, again, quite useful for defining sort of the initial sort of stuff. Now that eyelid looks stupid after I messed with the grab tool on it. I might use inflate a bit as well. It's sort of a bit better than grab because it sort of builds up some nice form, nice smooth form. And then I might use clay in this area a little bit and sort of start to define some cheeks and stuff. But most of that is better done in a lower level anyway. So while this creepy thing doesn't look that great, you can use the techniques I've just shown you to create some good looking stuff. If you've looked at my demo reel, which is also on my YouTube page, there's some examples of sculpting which I did in Sculptrise, which I generally prefer for sculpting. But you can get, it's pretty much all the tools are the same in Blender. It's just nicer not to worry about the sculpting levels with Sculptrise. So yeah, give that a try if you want. I might even do a sculpting tutorial in Sculptrise at some point, which would be quite fun. But for now, I think that'll do. Just an overview of sort of the tools and how you can use them. Hopefully you found this useful. I'd love to see any results that you have. Please do let me know if you've got any requests for tutorials that you need. Any other help and stuff you need, feel free to just post and comment on the bottom of the video. I'm more than happy to answer any questions. So until next time, good luck and have fun.